Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to work on this 90 Civic SI. The car is owned by a guy, his name's Justin. He thinks the clutch is blown as it's hard getting it into a lot of different gears. I drove it up and down the street myself and that seems to be the case. It doesn't seem like the transmission has any problems because when it's in neutral, it definitely is easy to shift into all the gears, but once you turn the car on, you have a really difficult time getting it into most gears. It seems like second was easiest and first sometimes for me. Now under the hood it's all stock. I had hit him up a couple months back just to kind of take a look at the car. He was having issues with the idle air control valve, the check engine light was coming on, and I'm just gonna basically overlook the car in general. He seems to have some issues with it stuttering. I don't know if that's been corrected. He hasn't mentioned it to me, but we're gonna take a look at all those things. And the engine bay is relatively stock, so it should be a pretty straightforward process of getting this transmission dropped. Now if you're interested in learning how to drop the transmission, click the link in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to link you to another video I have where I swapped the transmission on my wagon. One thing we were talking about, this car had been rebuilt and I think they used a different head. See the head casting on it? It says PM3. That definitely isn't like a PM6 or the PM5s off the DX and the SI models. So I'm not really sure what that is. I'll do some more research on it later on tonight. I kind of want to know what this head casting is off of. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and get to work on getting that transmission pulled. Once I get that off, take a look at the clutch. We'll go ahead and inspect it and I'll show you how it looks and we'll see what kind of damage has been applied to it. Alright guys, we got the transmission pulled. Everything went pretty smooth. Some of the bolts were a little pesky. And at first glance, the clutch does look like it has collapsed. You can see how this side is flat and the side is still pushed up. We're going to pull the clutch disc right now. The pressure plate and clutch disc, we're going to take a look at it. But that's obviously a sign that the clutch is given out. Speedometer cable was a pain in the ass, so I just pulled the whole speedometer assembly out, the speed sensor. I'm going to try to wiggle it back in and it'll still work like that, but it was just stuck in the actual speedometer sensor. Alright, let's take a look at the clutch disc. Got the pressure plate bolts removed. You can see it right there, see the material missing? It's actually, and then on the back side, that shit is just gone. I'm going to show you on the inside of the transmission right now. If you look, see all the little chunks in here? Those are the fibers from the clutch disc. It's kind of all over the inside of the casing of the transmission. There's a chunk of it right there, I believe, too. Yep. So it's definitely time for a new clutch on this car. A couple other areas of concern. This is the driver's side axle. At the outboard side, close to the wheel, this axle was actually split open. You can see it, it's all on the inside of the hub and the knuckle on the driver's side. And the front motor mount it's just completely broken to two pieces. And here's the passenger side mount. It's tearing a little bit, but it's not in bad shape. I'm gonna ask the owner right now if, for the driver's side, this is an OEM mount that was filled with urethane. So this is essentially a solid mount which will help keep the motor in its original position all the time. It's kind of like using a Hasport or Innovative mount. And then I have an extra passenger side mount, which I'll probably throw this on because this one is in much better shape. There doesn't seem to be any cracking. And then maybe we can just leave this one off until he can buy another one, or we can just fill it with some urethane as well. Alright, we got the flywheel off now. And when looking at it, you can see how it's wet around the bottom of the rear main seal. I had suggested replacing it, and we went ahead and bought an OEM Honda rear main seal, so that way we can avoid any potential leaks in the future. But this one, as you can see, it looks like it's already leaking a little bit, so it's great that we're replacing this at the same time. And here's those parts. That OEM rear main seal, if you need the part number, 91214-PLE-003. We're using an OEM styled clutch with the Exedy clutch kit. We're also putting on a brand new Duralast flywheel. Exedy also, they always recommend replacing the flywheel or having it resurfaced. I think it's better to just replace them. The cost over resurfacing a flywheel and shaving down the material that's already shaven down, it's always a lot easier just to buy a brand new one, have the full material on the flywheel, and get better clutch engagement. And since I pulled the transmission off last night, getting back to work on it this morning, I had the opportunity to go buy him a brand new mount from AutoZone. It's only about $18. And I had an extra axle that was brand new, I've never used, and we're going to use that one instead of his, which is falling apart at the boot. And Justin, I know we spoke, but just wanted to show you how this is your tie rod end. This is, both sides are like this. The boots are torn on the outer tie rods. The inner tie rods, both of the boots are also torn. So that just creates dirt getting in there, dust. That's why I'm recommending just buy a brand new rack. The same one I bought for my SI. Comes with the inner tie rods, and then you can get the outer tie rods replaced at the same time. And then for the lower ball joints, you can see how it's falling apart as well. The boots are both torn, and there's pretty much no more grease probably inside either of those. And that could be potentially dangerous. Last thing we want is one of these breaking and the knuckle falling off the assembly, especially while you're driving. And also you can see on the lower control arm bushing, see how it's tearing all around it. And that's just natural from age, the deterioration of the rubber and all the mileage put on it. Same with the sway bar end links. See all the little cracks in the rubber? So those are things we could fix in the future. You should still be fine driving on it like that. But something I would also recommend replacing in the future if you're going to keep the car and you want to keep working on it. Hey guys, whenever you're mounting a brand new flywheel, same with the clutch and the pressure plate, make sure you clean it off with some brake cleaner, because these usually have some sort of rust preventative coating on them, because obviously when they're sitting in a store for so long, they don't want to rust, just then the corrosion to build up on it. So make sure you always clean those before installing a brand new one. Now that I got the seal replaced, cleaned up all the oil that was surrounding it as well, we're going to throw on the new flywheel. Now we're going to go ahead and torque down the flywheel. If you're unfamiliar with how to do this, 4-step process. It needs to be 19 foot-pounds, 38, 57, and then 76. And you can do them in a star pattern. You'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I use a breaker bar on the opposite side into the ground. That way the motor doesn't spin while I torque those down. Now the clutch is much easier to get on. Choose the supplied alignment tool. Get the clutch set up onto the flywheel. Now put the pressure plate on and get all 6 of the bolts surrounding it started. Put it on the pressure plate's pretty easy too. You have 6 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the exact order that I torqued them in. You go in specs 5, 10, 14, 19. Once you have that finished, you can go ahead and remove the clutch alignment tool. Now we're just going to swap out the throwout bearing, and we can go ahead and get the transmission put back onto the car. I went ahead and removed the radius rod before attempting to put the transmission back in, because it could be difficult with the room. I noticed when I dropped it, it was kind of catching on the radius rod, so I don't want to limit me trying to move it around and trying to get it lined back up onto the engine itself. Other than Justin, how we talked about the new rack, looks like they welded your exhaust straight to the test pipe, so you normally have to drop the exhaust to get the new steering rack installed. So I guess it'll have to be disconnected way back where the cat normally would go, and then at the top where the exhaust manifold meets the piping. So it should still be doable, but just makes it a little bit more difficult, because normally you can just drop it right here where the flanges and the bolts are. And there it is, we've got the transmission put back on. That's usually my least favorite part about a clutch job. It took me 45 minutes to get this thing lined up, lifted. It's just relatively heavy. when you're doing it by yourself. I will always use a combination of my floor jacks, just kind of help me lift it and hold it while I reposition it. But then even as doing that, it can just be difficult to sometimes get the input shaft lined up into the flywheel / pilot bearing. You also want to make sure you're always supporting the engine, because you don't want to put any premature wear on this motor mount. This is the only motor mount holding the engine up any longer. What I always do, I will back out the bolt. That way it can swivel and you're not tearing at the bushing while you have the engine at this angle. We'll fast forward to me being finished. Got everything reinstalled. Haven't started it yet. I just filled it with some new transmission oil. Got the new motor mount on, new axle on. Replaced some hardware that was missing. If I saw anything missing, I went in and replaced it. But everything else seems good to go. Let's give it a start. Everything seems to be okay after the initial test of just reversing and coming back forward. I'm gonna go take it for a drive around the block now, see how it feels, make sure I got the clutch cable adjusted properly. Okay, the owner had been having issues with the car, stumbling and kind of bogging down under acceleration. And so when I took the car for a test drive after I got the clutch replaced, I wanted to put a little bit of mileage on and see if I can get that check engine light to replicate itself, because I had the battery disconnected overnight and obviously the check engine lights all get reset. But it did come back on, and I had the key in the ignition turned to the second position. I don't know if you can see it. See how it blinks just one time and it's fast? Quick blinks equal 1s, long blinks equal 10s. That way if you're counting like a 43 for the fuel system supply or anything else. So this one just keeps blinking over and over once and quickly. So my assumption is I'm thinking it's the O2 sensor. That's what code 1 is on these particular models. I also pulled the plate off because I wanted to make sure that it's still ran a PM6, but you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the camera. No, you can't really see it, but I can see it down there. It says PM6 on the ECU, so the ECU is correct. So O2 sensor's probably giving us issues. That might be the reason why it's stumbling around a little bit too. Now replacing the O2 sensor isn't tough, but unfortunately I've just driven the car about 30 miles and now everything's super hot in here. The exhaust manifold, the radiator, everything in that area where the O2 sensor is. Luckily this one's missing the front part of the heat shield, so you can see the O2 sensor right down there. Once I remove the intake arm, well, this extra intake vent arm, I should be able to hopefully reach down there with a couple extensions and a socket and get that off. Let's see if we can get that removed and just take a look at it. When I was inspecting the O2 sensor, the wiring was broken on the harness side. So I went ahead and just created a new male and female connection. That way it's getting a full connection there. We're going to test it out. But before doing that, since the engine's warm, I'm going to do a compression test and see what we're reading across all 4 cylinders. Just keep cranking it.
That's it, right?
Just crank it over and just keep it going. I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay. Yeah, that's a dark ass tent.
So you
driver?
No kidding.
Okay, you ready?
Go for it.
Here we go.
We're good. Looking at 160-ish, 161 and 2. We're good. 150 on cylinder number 2. Good. 152-ish. Good. 149-ish. So the compression test seems okay. Cylinder number 1, 160, the rest right around 150. It's not too much of a variance from them, but I don't think compression is the issue. Okay, after going for a ride after the compression test and O2 sensor, it didn't do a damn thing. Still has a little bit of a stutter, like at all different points. We're thinking might be this little rat's nest. Whoever put this back together, I'm not sure what they were doing, but they used a bunch of butt connectors. We're gonna verify the wires are the same by using Gabe's car. Start right here. What are you gonna cut?
That little.
The tape?
Yeah.
No, you don't have to. Just read this one out. What color is yours? It's just solid white, right? You should go to solid white there. Looks like it's correct. Let me see. Okay, middle. After that, middle, second row, orange. It's just like a solid orange, right? Kind of like a light orange.
Yes.
Let me check this
Two
one.
solid orange.
Yeah, yours should be the same. This one just has a different connector, so.
Maybe you should follow it further down.
I am. I'm going to where it goes afterwards.
Okay. And it's matching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the second row right is orange with a blue stripe.
Yes.
Okay. Red, black, orange, blue. Okay. Third row, blue with yellow stripe. Same spot. The only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to repin these two whites. I'm going to swap them around, see if that changes. We went in and swapped the two white wires on the distributor. We're going to see if it starts now. Good. So it's not that. We swapped a wire. Also fixed one of the butt connectors. Let's see this shit. Huh?
It's probably got to be the distributor.
Think so? We even tried the distributor off my wagon, which is brand new. That didn't seem to fix any problems either. Okay, we have the pulley lined up with the little arrow on down there. And at the top, it kind of looks like it might be off by one tooth. So we're gonna spin the cam gear back one and readjust the timing and see if that fixes the stuttering issue. The ratchet, I took the ratchet off the crank. Okay, so that was worse. We're gonna go ahead and readjust the timing. And that'll be it. We're gonna wrap it up. We've kind of exhausted our resources. We did distributor, compression test, adjusted the timing, made sure all fuel injectors were firing, swapped a couple lines of the wires of the distributor. Next we're gonna try the throttle position sensor, see if we can get that to maybe act a little differently, but that's gonna be on another time when I get to work on it again. Thanks for watching, guys.